There is one thing that a regime needs, above all, to survive. It's not the army, it's not the missiles, it's money. And Israel has just attacked exactly the place where the Iranian regime's money begins. These images you're seeing were recorded by Iranian civilians. The fire you're seeing is real. And what it represents is the biggest attack on Iran in decades. This place has a name, South Pars, a gas field located in the Persian Gulf, and there's nothing like it in the world. It is the largest natural gas field on the planet. To give you an idea of its size, this single field represents a huge part of all the revenue the Iranian government uses to stay in power, to pay its soldiers, to finance its allies spread across the Middle East, and to support the entire structure of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. Without the money that comes from gas and oil, the Iranian regime simply doesn't function. It's that simple. And South Pars is in a strategic location. It is shared with Qatar, a small Gulf country that is one of the largest gas exporters in the world. This division has always been a source of tension, but also of balance. Neither side had any interest in destroying what fueled both of their economies. At least, that's what people thought. Now, to understand why Israel attacked this exact spot, we need to go back in time a little. The war began on February 28th, 2026, when the United States and Israel launched a joint military operation against Iran. On the first day, the supreme leader, Ali Khamenei, was killed and the regime was left leaderless. Days later, Khamenei's son, Mojtaba, was chosen to take his father's place. But Iran did not back down. Quite the opposite. In the days that followed, Iran responded with missiles, drones, and attempts to close the Strait of Hormuz. That passage through which about 20% of all the world's oil flows. The war turned into a battle of endurance, each side trying to weaken the other. The United States and Israel destroying Iranian bases and leaders. Iran trying to raise the price of oil, stop trade at sea, and put pressure on the West's allies. For 20 days, Israel had attacked military targets, bases, missile depots, and communication centers. But there was always a line that neither side had crossed. Still, the power, oil, and gas facilities, the veins of the global economy. Attacking those points meant taking the war to a completely different level. It meant risking a worldwide energy crisis. It meant that the price everyone would pay at the gas pump would go up a lot. But on the 20th day of the war, Israel crossed that line. Israeli forces launched a direct attack on the production facilities of South Pars, the largest gas field in the world, inside Iranian territory. It wasn't a symbolic attack, it wasn't a warning, it was a calculated operation to strike at the king's economic heart, and it worked. The flames you saw at the beginning of this video are not from just any battle. They are from the place where much of the wealth that has sustained the Iranian regime for decades originates. Iranian civilians who lived near the area filmed the fire and smoke with their cell phones. These images spread around the world in a matter of hours because the attack on South Pars was just the beginning. What Iran did in response in the following hours may have been the regime's biggest strategic mistake in decades. Stay until the end. This changes everything. Actually, Iran wasn't the first to react. Donald Trump was. The American president posted on social media that the United States didn't know about the attack on South Pars before it happened. He said that Israel acted on its own, but people involved in the operation told a different story. An Israeli source stated that the attack was coordinated with the Americans. An American source said that the United States was aware of the plan. But regardless of who knew what, the result was the same. South Pars had been attacked, and now Iran needed to respond, and this was where the Iranian regime made a serious mistake. Instead of focusing its response on targets that would cause more military damage to the West, Iran decided to show strength by attacking the energy facilities of its neighbors in the Gulf. Iranian missiles and drones were launched toward Qatar, Saudi Arabia, and the United Arab Emirates. The main target was the Ras Laffan complex in Qatar, which is the largest gas terminal in the world. And Iran managed to cause real damage. The attack on Ras Laffan destroyed part of Qatar's export capacity. The president of Qatar Energy confirmed that about 17% of the country's gas export capacity had been hit. With estimated losses of $20 billion per year, the energy market reacted immediately. Brent crude oil, which is the global price benchmark, soared to $115 per barrel. But Iran just attacked a country that was not its enemy. Qatar is a Gulf country that, despite having had its disputes with Iran in the past, was not involved in the conflict. It didn't send troops, it didn't provide bases for American and Israeli attacks. It was a neutral country that simply had the misfortune of sharing the same gas field with Iran, and the Iranian regime decided to attack it anyway. Qatar's response was swift and harsh. The Qatari government expelled the military representatives from the Iranian embassy in Doha and ordered them to leave the country within 24 hours. Saudi Arabia was even more direct. The Saudi foreign minister publicly stated that the little trust that remained in Iran was completely destroyed and went even further. He warned that Riyadh and other Gulf capitals had the military strength to respond harshly if the Iranian attacks did not stop immediately. Think about what that means. Iran has spent decades trying to build some kind of relationship with its Arab neighbors, trying to present itself as an important and respected country in the region. In a single attack, it destroyed all that work, turned countries that were neutral into potential enemies, and did this at a time when it was already losing the war. Trump still had a message to deliver. If Iran attacked Qatar's energy facilities again, the United States would, in his words, completely blow up the entire South Pars gas field, with a force and power that Iran has never seen or witnessed. It wasn't a suggestion, it was a threat in capital letters. The same field that Israel had partially attacked could be completely destroyed by the Americans if Iran insisted. And while Iran was isolating itself in the Gulf and receiving threats from the United States, internally, the regime was collapsing, and the men who could save the regime were being eliminated. In the 20 days of war, American and Israeli forces were eliminating the main leaders of the Iranian regime. Ali Larijani, the country's chief of security and one of Iran's most experienced politicians, was killed in an Israeli attack. With him dead, one of the few possible bridges between Iran and the West simply disappeared. Gholam Reza Soleimani, the commander of the Basij forces, which are the regime's paramilitary force, was also eliminated. Esmail Khatib, Iran's Minister of Intelligence, was killed in an Israeli operation. The Iranian president himself publicly confirmed what he called the cowardly assassination of his minister. 3 central figures of Iranian security and intelligence killed in less than 3 weeks. And on top of all that, the new supreme leader, Mojtaba Khamenei, hastily chosen after his father's death on the first day of the war, had not yet appeared publicly on video, only through written statements. The American Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth, said in a press conference that the new leader was injured, probably disfigured, and that the absence of video and voice was a clear sign of what was happening, he said. Why would a country with cameras and voice recorders issue only a written statement? You know the reason. Think about that for a second. The man who should appear on Iranian television to tell his people that everything is fine, that Iran is strong, that the regime will endure, this man can't even show his face. In Tehran, families lost relatives in the attacks, entire neighborhoods were hit, and the leader who should be speaking to these people is hiding, injured, unable to appear in public. This is not just a military defeat, it's the collapse of an image that the regime took 40 years to build. In 20 days of war, the United States and Israel together destroyed more than 15,000 targets inside Iran. 15,000. That averages out to more than 750 targets per day, every day without stopping. 90% of Iranian air defenses were destroyed, 70% of missile launchers eliminated, and drone launches dropped by 95% compared to the first day. And the Iranian Navy was practically wiped off the map. More than 100 ships were destroyed or damaged, with 90% of Iranian air defenses out of action. The Americans no longer needed stealth planes to fly over Iran. They sent the B-52, a bomber over 70 years old, huge, slow, with no stealth technology at all, and it's there, flying freely. Along with it are the B-1 Lancer and the A-10 Warthog, ground attack aircraft that only come into play when the sky is already completely clear of threats. Sending a B-52 over Iran is not just a tactical decision, it's a message. You can't stop us anymore. The Americans also used ATACMS missiles to sink Iranian ships, including a submarine. This was the first time in history that this type of missile was used to sink a submarine. And they dropped 5,000-pound bunker-busting bombs on Iranian missile bunkers along the Strait of Hormuz. The bombs went in and destroyed everything inside. Iran tried to fight back. An American F-35 was hit by Iranian fire during a combat mission and had to make an emergency landing at an American base in the region. It was the regime's attempt to show that it could still hit the best fighter jets in the world. But the aircraft landed, the mission continued, and so did the attacks. On the battlefield, Iran is losing, but outside of it, the situation is no better. Every move by Iran to show strength has resulted in more isolation, more pressure, more destruction. The regime's strategy, which was to make the war too costly for the West, is failing. And do you know why? Because the price that Iran itself is paying is much higher.
Oil prices soared today due to rising tensions. Brent.
The energy markets, yes, are in panic. Oil reached $115 per barrel. This is real, and it affects the whole world. But Iran lost South Pars, lost its main security and intelligence leaders, lost allies in the Gulf, and has a new leader who can't even appear in public. Oil prices will drop when the war is over. The Iranian regime may not survive to witness this moment. And this is where it's worth pausing to understand what's really happening. Because deep down, this story isn't just about a war. It's about what happens when a regime that built its entire identity on the word resistance is finally put to the real test. The regime that for decades built its image on its ability to resist, that survived sanctions, isolation, and wars by using allied countries as pawns, is now facing something different. It's not economic pressure from outside, it's a direct war on its own territory against the two biggest military forces of the West acting together. The U.S. Director of Intelligence herself admitted to the Senate that the regime is still standing, but greatly weakened. In other words, it hasn't fallen yet. But what's happening now isn't a war that ends with a formal surrender, it's a slow dismantling, piece by piece, of everything that used to sustain this regime. When you lose your leadership in the first 20 days of a conflict, you don't recover quickly. When you attack neutral countries and turn them into enemies, you don't regain that trust in a matter of weeks. When your main source of money is attacked, you don't rebuild an economy in months. The collapse has already begun. The question now isn't if it's going to happen. The question is how long it will take and what will emerge on the other side. Remember what we said at the beginning? That above all, a regime needs money? South Pars was that money, and now it's on fire. Now, I want to know your opinion. Do you think the Iranian regime will survive this conflict? Leave your opinion in the comments. And speaking of collapse, in the next video, I'll show exactly how the United States is making this happen. It's not just a war, it's a surgical operation to dismantle, piece by piece, everything Iran has built in 40 years. The numbers are absurd. If this video helped you understand what's behind the headlines, share it with someone who also wants to know what's really happening in the Middle East. And if you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, now is the time. The war is far from over, and there's much more to come. Until next time.